This is it's a nice little shindig here.
Yeah, we're over here at Cohiba de Cuba, a cigar lounge in North Hollywood.
Yep. You guys got to come check this spot out. It's actually really nice, really cozy, really comfortable, a really cool vibe. They have a lot of exclusive deals with some major cigar brands, so you guys should really come check this out. But welcome back to another episode of I Wish I Knew the podcast. I'm kind of excited.
Me too. And today we're going to talk about something that everybody go through. Everybody know a person or been through a breakup.
Breakup, heartbreaks. Well, not just breakups, but not with just significant others and people that you're dating, but even just heartbreaks in general when it comes to friends, family, betrayal, disappointment, letdowns. There's a lot of other types of heartbreak out there that can be just as impactful as the person you're dating.
Overcoming toxic relationships and being able to, kindly distance or disattach yourself from people that don't influence you or don't bring you closer to the best version of yourself that you have in your mind.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I guess to talk about is that when you go through a heartbreak, you kind of tend to lose vision and clarity. Usually the pain of a heartbreak is very detrimental, that it's sometimes hard to remember what the vision is or what your goal is. But I know from my experience, I remember always having the clear goal of what I wanted to do for a lot of time. And then when I hit a particular heartbreak in 2014, it was different in the sense that I went through a breakup, and then the aftermath of the breakup was very messy, I'd say. It was very childish, high school, immature. And mind you, let me say that any of my past experience, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. They are all still really good people. These are just kind of the hard learning lessons when you're learning to deal with people. And I remember the breakup was one thing, but it was how that individual continued relations with other people that were close. And when you're with somebody for quite a long time, you guys share a close group of friends, and that could become the friends to the both of you. And when the breakup happens, it can get very messy between whose friend is who. To me, I've never been one to be you have to choose, be friends with whoever you want to be friends with. You got an experience with somebody and that's good, go for it. But I knew that, or I found out that boundaries had been crossed, and whether or not I know what the timing was to know that it had been while the relationship was going, it was very detrimental to me to find out that the close friend was willing to do that. And that was almost more upsetting than my ex trying to get the attention.
So what exactly happened? What was the cause to your breakup? Why was it so messy?
Well, there was many little different causes of the breakup, but I think one of it was just timing. I think it was at that time in the life where she needed to experience life on her own a bit. I was her first major, I don't want to put this all too much out, but it was a long-term relationship that happened. We were both very young, and I think at this point in life, she was ready to be an adult on her own. And for me, it became hard because you can see the pullback and the kind of disinterest and kind of doing your own thing. I think one of the times I got kind of hurt, we finished doing a video, was all of us together, and I choreographed it, filmed it, all the homies are there, and she was there, and they all leave to go to the bar without me. She's like, all right, peace, we're out, bye. This plan had already gone out. I was like, whoa, I felt really cut out and left out. And that kind of action continued more so. It's like, again, I'm not saying you got to pick and choose who to be friends with, but it really felt like this, like, oh, I'm taking these people and I want this attention. And it was all, we were all very young, so these are like the young, immature things to go through. I think a lot of us misconstrue attention for love. We think that just by getting someone's attention that is love, and there's layers and levels to it. Some people pay attention only for an amount of time to get a certain thing, and that's all that they necessarily want, and that's all they'll put in effort for. And once they get that, they pull back, reserve, or they won't go any further. And I think oftentimes we misconstrue that type of attention for love. And then when it gets pulled back, we're wondering what's going on and this and that. But at the time, it was very much like people were hurt and people were seeking attention. And I know for me, the toxic habits I got into is that I started. Well, here's mistake number one is that I didn't pull away from anybody. I was still trying to be social and hang out with the group and hang out with the friends and us party and have fun. And so we got into a lot of like harder things to do, and which case became a lot of bad habits. And I think that I was getting into doing bad habits because I was still in pain, but I didn't want to pull away from the group. I still wanted to be social with the group and hang out with everybody. So in a weird way, I would like do a combination of things throughout the night just to feel some kind of way. And then I realized I started doing that on a regular basis, even without having to go out with anybody or hang out with anybody. I started doing things on my own, and it became a regular habit for a bit of time. And and there's so many like wrong steps that I'm like clearly aware of now. Like one mistake was getting right into another relationship and becoming very codependent on that person after my breakup. It was like 6 months after my breakup. And I think that was one of the things that I lost my car and apartment in a matter of months, and then I kind of jumped into a new relationship to kind of basically survive. And God bless her for helping me out and taking me on and committing and sacrificing. But it wasn't a good idea for me to jump into a new relationship so soon. And then picking up bad habits, staying within the group. Not to say that anybody was even trying to hurt me per se. Everyone was just kind of trying to do what they did, for their own kind of personal reasons. But I don't really believe anybody had so much of vendetta. There might have been, a little bit of saltiness, between my ex and I. But with other parties involved, I don't think anybody was trying to be malicious. I think people just got caught up in things when you're kind of, doing the bad habits and you're hanging out and you're not necessarily caring about responsibilities. Like, it's just kind of like, it's all leading to a toxic situation, and that's definitely something that I partook in for years.
Right. It seems like the cause to the frustration is the resisting the growth and holding on to, because it seems to me, because I feel like we're at a stage where it's kind of like hard to go through messy relationships at this stage of where we are, because it's you able to communicate and you still want
we're going to talk about it now,
but other person. But at the same time, when you move from the ego, the ego gonna do everything it can to protect its existence. So you identified with your concept of yourself then, and your ego could not let that concept go.
Right.
When your inner being was ready to grow to bigger things, this is why the universe had to remove that person,
Right.
And to moving on and release the resistance was what you would do different now.
Well, I mean, a couple things. One is that ego was sulking too much, and there was I gave too much to the ego rather than trying to soothe my soul. Because the truth is that to soothe the soul would have been to not necessarily get in relationships too soon. But besides that, to communicate the pain going through it, because I remember, I think I was in the new relationship a couple months, and then I found out information pertaining to the past, and I was so hurt and felt betrayed by it, but I felt like I couldn't say or do anything because I was in the new relationship and felt like it wasn't my place to. And that's not how to do it. We're all human beings. We all feel things, and we still feel pain from people who have hurt us in our past. Like, unless you really address it and reflect on it, which I did not do, it's harder to let go. And that's all I did, is I resisted going through the pain of really just sitting with the pain, admitting all the pain, and
forgiving yourself for feeling that pain, and forgiving the other person.
Right, but not only that, is that in my own pain, it led me to do the things that are probably the most regretful moments of my life, resulting with a combination of all these things. And it just goes to show, it's like, man, I would never want to be that person and do anything that I do to bring someone else pain. And I realize that when you're in pain, and when you sulk in pain, and when you try to numb yourself from the pain rather than just really experience and talk it out and express it in a healthy, constructive way, it really can manifest in negative ways. And for me, like, the whole time frame of like 2014 to 2018, even 19, were probably like the hardest times of my personal life, and it felt like the lowest time of myself. Like, I didn't like myself at all. I didn't like what my daily habits were becoming. I didn't like that I was not being my best self. I was becoming very codependent on just two people, which then ended up like blowing up in my face, because both of those relationships ended in almost the same fashion as the previous relationship ended. And it just goes to show what my pattern was, how toxic and negative I had become. And I can't say that it's like me going through this made them do that. No, everyone went through their own things. But when you have the combination of everybody going through pain, and then everybody doing the wrong things to get through their pain, you can only have results and negative outcomes.
Right. And when you do the wrong thing, and when you have negative ways to overcome your pain, you attract people who do the same thing.
Right.
So it's no coincidence that you're around that, and you had to go through that pattern, and you had to go through that cycle again to show you, like, look, bro, you got to figure this 1, 2, 3 out. Yeah. You had to do that inner work, and it had to repeat itself for you to realize that I can have my own back. I can let go of this concept of myself. I can let go of that so-called identity, or this group of friends, and that character that I built of myself. I can let that go.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of superpower that a lot of people don't realize that they have, is that we definitely do have the power to change our perspective. But sometimes that's the hardest part, when you had your mind married to a vision, or you just really had this expectation of something and it doesn't turn out the way you want. I mean, that's often going to be life. You just still got to keep trekking forward. And I think what I would definitely do different would be to take the time to not jump into another relationship after a breakup, but really examine why that relationship ended, what my role was, because I think that was the first time the second relationship that ended in 2018 was probably the first time I stopped to take a look at myself and what my role was in this whole thing. And I was like, wow, I did play a responsible part. There were signs that were around that I ignored. There was a lot of things that was just about my ego and about fear, and it just wasn't my best self. I mean, my own longest best friend kept telling me for the longest time, he was like, dude, I don't like who you were in that relationship. I do not like who you were. You felt like a shell of your former self, and it hurt, because it's like, well, damn, I really try to defend it too, because it's like I felt like the individual was doing a lot was committing and sacrificing a lot to take me in and to share everything. We're sharing a home, sharing a car, doing jobs together, helping me out on gigs. I'm helping her out on things. So it felt like a real partnership, but it was also a forced partnership, and it wasn't something that was organic. And I think that's something to understand. What was crazy is that my relationship with my business partner at the time was a great working relationship, and there was a real cohesiveness and a good understanding of how each other worked, and we worked well together. And that was something that was always a value to me, because you don't find people that you often vibe that well on like a daily basis. Like, you can be around each other, work together, ask each other for ideas. That was a great relationship, but I think my problem is I depended too heavily on it. I became, after a while, I finally pulled away from the group, but I still did my bad habits at home with the close group. And it became bad habits and me being codependent on only two people, and those two people still going through their own things. And I think I think everyone needs to have a healthy relationship and boundaries with yourself, be able to be alone, and then have different individuals that you can talk to. You can't solely rely on just 1 to 2 people all the time. It is, if you have the 1 or 2 best friends and they're always there, that's great. And you can, if you're able to be mutual towards each other, that's great. But I think a better safety net for individuals, especially if you're going through like a heartbreak, is try to be around. But
the question is why you need that safety. Because you don't want to get to a point where, okay, you can don't rely on more than 2 people, 5 people. What if you don't have those? You want to be able to get to a point where you don't even need to talk to another person outside of yourself, because you know that you whatever it is, the idea, you can't even be an idea. You're so beyond that. So you gotta get to that point. And the beautiful thing about your case is that like you said, you mentioned that I had to do a self-reflection, and I had to figure out what was it that I wasn't doing, or that I could do more, or I had to do that self-reflection. Now, when you walk into a relationship and you don't know exactly what is it that you want, or what exactly is it that you're going to bring, then of course you're just gonna settle for things that you don't even want. You're just gonna keep finding relationship that doesn't fulfill you until, and that's why you gotta go through these experiences, until you know what is it that you can bring, until you know yourself to that depth, until you know what is it that you like, what is it that you don't like, what is good about you, what is it that you could do more practice and improve. You have to know these things, and then come with that. You set the tone. I don't know, I'm coming to this relationship maybe for this, maybe for that. No, I know every relationship I have with each person, I know exactly what is it for, how it serves me, and I know how the value that I bring. So that's you have to go through that. You have
multiple relationships though to have those different values.
Yes, you have to go through multiple types of people. That is so true.
So it is the balance of both. It's you have to, like, in heartbreak is going to be one of the hardest times, especially to be by yourself. So you have to give yourself grace and compassion. You have to understand, again, what we've talked about before, is that you're not just your thoughts and the experiences that are ruminating in your head. Those are just those moments in time, and if you can go out and experience more life and have more relationships, and you go through which people are going to be the fulfilling relationships in your life, and then once you do that, I guess the thing is that you have to try by yourself to not be toxic and destructive. That way, when you go to the other relationships, or you have those other people, that they're not going to enable that portion of you. Because it's one thing, to go out and have a drink with your friends, especially after a breakup or whatever, but you don't want anyone that's going to encourage destructive behavior.
Right, and let me highlight that right there. You said you have to try to not be toxic and destructive in these relationships. Now, I feel like a good way to do that would be to, in order for you to not be toxic, you have to be happy, right? You have to want the best intention, which means you have to get used to finding things that you love about each person. And once you create that habit and you see each person as like a teacher of life, and what is it that I can learn from them, or what is it that I like and admire about them, and focus on the things that you want.
Right. Something you said, though, that's really important, though, was intention. And I think there's so many of us that live life without an intention, especially when it comes to relationships. It's kind of like an open free market, and vibe with whoever you vibe with, and if you get along, cool. If not, there may be some tension or whatever, but a lot of people don't bring intention to a relationship.
Very true.
And I think that's something that you pointed out that's a crucial thing in growth of a relationships, is what is really the intention? Like, what is the intention of the relationship? And if it's to grow and to lean each other and be supportive and be loving, then let that be the intention. But this is why people come into conflict, is when people had different intentions. Someone just wanted to chill and hang out and just, have a good time, whereas somebody else is really looking forward to something. If you're going to have those clash of intentions, you're going to have a fall off at some point. You can get along and have chemistry all you want, but if you don't have the same intentions down the line, and that coincides with values, then you're going to have a fall off at some point, because chemistry will only last so long. It's only going to last so long. And,
true.
And love is not enough in any one relationship. Love is a prerequisite, because with love comes the commitment, the sacrifice, the loyalty, the helping hand, the support system, the lean on. Like, that's all part of it.
Right, and life gets complicated, and life gets messy when you wait for the outside to show you what is it that you want. When you get in a relationship just to find out how it's going to end up, no. You know how you want this to go, so you set the tone. And it's the same when people just like, I don't know, I'm going to just live my life and then look at life circumstances, and they say, well, if this is like that, then it must be 1, 2, 3. But this is when life evolves. Like you said, you have to have the intention. And if you're going to do somebody in a good way and you're kind to somebody, it's not because you want to get something back. It's because this is your character. It's your character. It's who you are. And this is why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this to get anything back from anybody. I'm doing this because this is my set of values. And thank you for talking about values, because having a set of values really affects the quality of your relationships and how well you overcome being distant from people or cutting ties with certain people.
It's one of those, it's another level of awareness that you're kind of unaware of until you go through, I would say, probably a couple heartbreaks or failed relationships to understand what worked and what didn't work, and what the values are. And when you really learn to appreciate values, and when people hold up values and live by values, it's a whole different ballgame. I think one thing to understand again is, like, when you're going through heartbreak, the easy thing that society kind of perpetuates is usually drinking, and it's usually very toxic behaviors. Now, I'm not going to get into caring about whether or not you drink or not. I think moderation is truly the key, if that's the case, if you don't want to give up drinking. But I do know that every regretful decision I've ever made involved drinking. And I believe that when you're in heartbreak, that's when desperation to feel good is at its highest. And this is why I say try to find constructive things to do, because drinking and going out late night clubbing when you're in heartbreak will not necessarily like evade the pain. It's just postponing it. The truth is, you just got to feel your pain out. It's all right to not go out. It's all right to grieve. It's all right to cry. It's all right to have a moment to yourself. It's all right to not have to be consuming content or things on the regular. Like, I think the hardest time for me was the fact that I didn't know how to sit in silence because of the pain. And in my second breakup, it felt like I couldn't be in silence. It felt like my mind was always screaming and always replaying the event and the incident in like the worst fashion possible. And I remember a moment, I was talking to my brother one time. I was, after my breakup, my second breakup, I moved to my mom's house in Arizona and left California, and I wasn't sure if I was going to come back or how. I know that I wanted to. I ended up coming back and staying at my friend's place for probably like a year. Shout out to Chris Young. I love you, bro. I was staying at his place for like a year, and I remember like the whole goal was to be out here. The goal was to be out here so that I can be around the community and I can do things and I can work. I was here for like 8 months, didn't do anything. People didn't even know I was here. And this is like before pandemic. Like, they just didn't know I was here because I was so depressed. I was talking to my brother and I was telling him, I was like, dude, I don't know what's wrong. Like, I have the full day, I can go do whatever, but I'm like, I just have no energy. And my brother was just like, yeah, I think that's called depression. When you don't physically feel well to do it. And I was just like, wow. And then I realized, like, I cultivated that in a way that I wasn't trying to go out and live life and do things. Now, there were moments that I was like kind of forcing myself to go to bars and go to clubs and try to socialize, but that I realized that wasn't like the connection that I was really searching for. I was heartbroken and looking for connection and community, but I was like trying to do it at a bar where they've got a loud DJ playing music. You can't really have conversation there. And funny enough, that would be where I would find like my friends that I'd known, and they would ask me, how are you doing? And they can see in my eyes that like I wasn't as well as I was pretending to be. And that's when like, but in that moment somebody was reaching out, and I was like, thank goodness. And it takes that having to go out. Sometimes you got to take the step to go out even when you don't want to be around people, to be around good people and good energy, because sometimes you need that. Sometimes you do need to be alone and be by yourself, but when it gets to be too overwhelming, then you need to go be around somebody else that's good energy.
Yeah, being around people with good energy is definitely important. I feel like what it is having that balance between the mind and the inner being, because your mind is going to tell you, you can't be going through pain right now, you got to do 1 2 3,
right, you got to hustle.
Or if you have pain right now, do 1 2 3, and you know what, if your inner being is feeling down, like you said, you know what I'm saying, like, you got to get through the pain, you got to feel it. You can't resist it. Any feeling of depression or suffering is always going to come from resisting to something. What are you resisting exactly?
Right, because you got to understand the energy is so important. Even if you try to push through and hustle, your energy is not going to carry out the same. You're going to feel down, exhausted, upset, irritated, and you're not going to do as good of work. And that's why you have to have that reflection and really look at your own habits, look at your own circle, and take the steps to better it. Like, it comes down to, again, what you consume, the types of food that you're eating, what you're watching. If the people you're around are being dramatic and negative and upsetting, and they're never discussing anything that's a possibility or future endeavors, you have to become aware of that, and start putting yourself in better atmospheres and environments that will give you a sense of growth.
Right.
But it's definitely important to understand, I definitely had to pull away from hanging out with the group of friends that were partying every other weekend and doing our regular habits.
Yeah.
it's like, okay, stop going out to that. I don't need to go out to the bar, and I don't need to drink. I don't need to go do that. I mean, truth be told, my dogs are my greatest excuse, because they don't care if I'm hungover in the morning. They expect a walk, and the last thing I ever want to do is take my dogs out hungover. It's not fun. So I prefer not to really ever do anything anymore. But I went through that phase of going to the extreme of doing things that were probably my most shameful times, because I was so hurt. And on the reflection of it, I see so many of the things that I did to prolong that for so long, that it distorted my point of view for a bit of time. And I really do feel like people, if you could learn to really like be kind to yourself when you're alone, and do things that bring legitimate joy that aren't destructive, do those. Go find good people that love those things, that bring joy, that are happy. Be around those people, because sulking and then going to the negative naysayers, or even just the party goers, is not going to get you through your pain. And you have to get through the pain. I'm not, especially because we are in such a hustle society, there's not a lot of time to deal with pain. And this is why you have to take a moment before you're forced to take a moment. If you don't take that moment, it will blow up in your face later on, guaranteed. Whether you have a blow up or your health goes through something, you have to learn to take a moment to rest before you hit the boiling point for your own self.
Yeah, it's very true, and it's beautiful words that you are saying. And notice how back then, when you was going through these relationships, the way you was speaking to yourself, that voice that told you you can't be in pain right now, go out, do drink and do something. That voice, the way you was talking to yourself, is what attracted the way people also was talking or giving you the same type of energy.
Yeah.
You see how how
everybody was doing the same thing.
Yeah, however you saw yourself, and I think this is where a lot of people, they forget, how we say it takes two for tango. Like if you are in a toxic relationship, or you are being going through pain, you are as toxic as the other person in your relationship.
Absolutely.
You are as abusive as the other abuser. You know what I'm saying?
That might be
it takes two.
different for some individuals, but I understand the point.
Because if you don't, whatever you allow is your decision.
Right.
So you have to
set the standards.
Yeah, and you have to go through this to even realize that you got to talk to yourself more kindly, and you have to see yourself in a higher light.
And that's the thing, because I was doing these things, the people around me were okay to do these things and enable it and encourage it. And now it wasn't in any malicious way, but because everybody was partaking, it felt like the fun thing to do, the escape to do, whatever it may be. But again, it started with the self, because I said it was okay for me to do it. It became a regular thing around me. And once you kind of pull away from that and realize like you're not around that anymore, it's like, oh wow, I control who has access and who's around.
Right.
And that's the powerful thing. Yeah,
and going out and the drinking, and whenever we put our joy in these things, like if a person chooses to invest there, we all have like a flow in love that we give, and if each person chooses to give it to something else. Some people choose alcohol, and that's why you drink it, and then it becomes a part of you, and then you don't have it anymore, so you got to keep drinking.
Absolutely.
And it's the same with you get in relationships with toxic people, and you use the relationship to like get the whatever concept of happiness that you have, and you take and take and take, and then that's over, and then what? You find yourself confused, and then you look for the next thing until you stop, you pause, and you realize that you are none of these things. And then when you start pouring the same love into yourself and your own being and to the things that make you happy, that's when it grows.
Right.
That's the one thing that you can give to that source of energy that is going to grow and not disappear yourself.
You usually hit that point when you say to yourself, I am sick and tired of feeling this way. you hit that point, it's like, oh, I can control this, is when you finally reach the boiling point, is I am sick and tired of feeling the way I feel.
Right, and understanding that nothing happens to you by chance. Nothing happens by coincidence. You attract any experience, any circumstance, you attracted it with either a thought you thought or a word you said. You attracted that thing, or either a cycle, and it gives you an opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, the universe is not going to throw something at you for no reason. You're going to have to go through that lesson and experience until you overcome it, until you forgive yourself, until you let go of something that you're holding on to, you know?
Yeah.
It's going to keep giving you that lessons, and then you get to a point where it's like, I know why I'm getting into this relationship, and I know why I'm getting into that relationship, and why I have these people in my life, and these things become so valuable because you don't see them as chances. They're not coincidences. They are results to your hard work, to your values, to your thoughts. They are,
Right.
you know, there's
It's a
a cause and effect. Yeah.
Right.
And then you get to a point where, like, even if you get through a breakup, and even if something is, you know, being, you know, taken away from you, you can't even be mad because you understand, all right, there's a reason it's happening. Let me see what is it, you know, that self-reflection, but in a positive way, not
Right.
in a way that we judge ourselves.
Right,
But in a
right.
way that understanding, like, if this whole universe is me, and everything that I see around me is my inner self being pushed out, what is it that I can do better? Like, what is that opportunity? What does it hold? You know?
Right, and that's why, again, it comes down to, like, when those breakups and things happen, you have to, if you can hold on to a vision or a purpose and move forward in that, do so, but try to move from a place of love and trying to get better rather than being bitter. And it's a very difficult thing to do because, again, when breakups happen and if one person is betrayed, even if the person played a part in something, they're always looking at, well, this person did this. And it's a dangerous trap to sit there and ruminate on that. You take accountability for yourself, learn that everybody is going to do in their life the things that bring them pleasure and joy. Most often, nothing that happens to you is personal to you. Again, everybody operates from a place of self first, and they're always going to put their needs first. And if you have a good person that puts other people's needs ahead of them, that's great, but even still, everybody operates from a place of self. And when you have hurt people, they're going to be most selfish towards self. And I think you should be selfish in the kinder ways, be selfish in the compassionate ways, be selfish in the most positive ways. Don't go out drinking, but go to the beach and have a moment to yourself, or go on a hike by yourself, or go to a movie with a dear trusted friend.
Right.
Like, again, I think when you're hurt, people think they want attention, but the truth is everybody's craving connection. And if you can find the connection with yourself first, bravo. Sometimes we need a little bit of help, so you need to go find the people you have a true connection with, that you can have an honest conversation with, that you can be vulnerable with, that you can feel intimate with about whatever it is that's really on your mind, or communicating your feelings without you feeling judged or misheard or misunderstood. Like, you have to find the people that are the honest connections, and that can be really difficult when you go through heartbreak and betrayal. It can feel like you don't know who to trust. You can feel like you don't trust anybody. You can feel like, fuck everybody. But truth of the matter is that everybody's going through their own things. Everybody operates from a place of self first, but there are still good people out there.
Right.
There are still people who have values, who live by their values, and who stand by their values. And it is, again, your duty as a human being on your journey in life to find the people that align with your values.
I feel like a simple way to put it is for you to be able to find those people that you can be vulnerable with, and the people that don't judge you, is to simply be that person yourself.
Yeah.
And whenever you look at people, no matter what,
Yeah.
don't judge them. And it comes from, I feel like the foundation of it, especially if you go through a heartbreak, the foundation is forgiveness, because
Yeah.
you have to forgive people. You have to understand that everybody go through their own progress,
Right.
and their own experience of the world is themselves, and how they experience themselves is just, their energy, and it has nothing to do with you. And you forgive them, and you forgive yourself. Or even if you go through pain and people hurt you, it's absolutely natural for you to feel sometimes. There's a law of rhythm. You sometimes going to be up, sometimes you're going to be down.
Right.
But you're not attached to the need of always having to be up. And you're not attached to the concept of how you think people should treat you. You just let them do what they need to do, and you forgive them, because it's their own growth. Let the universe deal with them, you know what I mean? And you just focus on you, and you be that person that you want to find. You look at every person as a part of yourself. What is that person can teach me? All of us are a part of the same source. What is that person can teach me about myself? And be open to those people. Even if you have a concept, and it's okay, the mind is going to do it. It's going to make concepts of like, okay, I see that person and they wear this and that, they probably 1, 2, 3. And your mind is going to make that concept. But here's the thing, don't resist it. Don't resist it. Don't believe that concept. Even answer your mind if you need to and say, Kim, you don't know shit. I be saying that to myself in my head, And then from that place, you're able to attract those people to you. And like Shaboob said, it's so important to be around those people, because they're going to lift you up. And, we need that contrast of energies around us too.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's also important. I mean, a lot of it is what we talked about, I think, before, even with meaningful relationships, just that when you're going through a toxic time or dealing with toxic people, and honestly, toxic can come in very, very various forms. It can be even with family being negative.
Oh, family, this is a very important point too.
Yeah.
Because, some people go through that, and
Absolutely.
Especially growing up as a child, and then growing up and realizing like, damn, my parents were kind of, they were going through their own thing.
Aside from children, if you're over the age of 18, at this point, you're going to have to learn to fend for yourself and live on your own. But you have to get to a point where you're not needing them so much, because when you lean on them and they have a different perspective or point of view about how you should live your life, and if they're putting money into your life, they're going to have say, and it could be difficult to tune that out. And that's why you have to learn to live on your own and take care of yourself, and then you can cultivate a good relationship with your family. But you got to be careful to know what you're going to tolerate and what you're going to put up with, because you don't have to. As adults, truth be told, you don't have to do anything.
Right.
So you should try to do everything with love and gratitude, and understand that family's going to be there for you one way or another, to try to be appreciative of that and bring good energy to them. But you control your relationships.
Right.
Like, you control the energy that you bring, you control what you're going to tolerate, you control how often you speak to somebody. So you don't have to put up with any of it. But hopefully the idea is that, if you love your family, you guys can find a way to, even if you disagree, that there's still love there. I think a lot of people have a disillusion that disagreement means that we don't love each other. Mm-hmm. And I think that with family, especially when people have very strong opinions and things get heated, they can feel like a lot of friction there. But understand that, you can love somebody and still not agree with their point of view, their perspective, the way that they live life. You can have those differences and still respect one another. Mm-hmm. As long as there's respect there.
Right, especially when you grow up and, you love your family, and whatever the situation is, we also have to remember, our parents, our family, they're gonna tell us, they're gonna come from a place of their concept of ourself, and they want the best for us, but from that concept that they have of who we are. Right. Now, of course, growing up, they are our parents, but the truth of the matter is you're a child of the universe. You know what I mean? Right. You're a child of the universe, and your parents are co-parenting you. But that in you that is not a concept, you know the most of, you know yourself the best way. So it could be, like you said, some situations when parents, like, they put money in the whoever the person life, and they try to tell them what to do or what to study or what to work at, and it's kind of like difficult because I don't know what to do. But you rely on people that they have a concept of you, and that's where they're going from, and you just rely on that. But where is your faith in yourself? Where is your faith in your own being that tells you what is it that makes you happy?
Exactly.
What is it that doesn't make you happy?
Right,
You gotta have faith.
Right. Here's the thing. If you have the vision, you are capable of doing it. If you have the vision, you're not only capable of doing it, you're capable of getting to the place to accomplish it. Like,
that's very true.
You can, I think, for a lot of people, especially when they're young and kind of needing the help of the family, which is fine. I've been that kid. I'm the youngest of 4 in my family. I am the spoiled brat of my family. But I can tell you, for the person having to rely on them the longest, it's not the funnest. You don't want to be at a certain age still relying on other people for your survival. And I'm blessed that I have a very loving family, and luckily anybody's toxic traits has not come about in the sense of, like, not supporting me in what I do and what I want to do. So I'm very blessed in that sense. But it's like, toxicity comes in different ways, and you have to learn what your boundaries are, what your tolerances are, and learn how to love the family through it.
Right. And if you have to be in a different environment or, move the location, yourself. I think it's very important too. Yeah. You have to, taste life from a different environment. When you grow up with family and people who you grow up with, there's a lot of conditioning. And then a lot of people, they have desires and they immediately condition that desire. Like, if I have this desire, then maybe, our parents are going to tell you, well, then you should do 1, 2, 3, or this person going to tell you should do 1, 2, 3. But like you said, if you have the vision, you can make it happen. Having that desire is not showing you what is it that you want. It's showing you what is it that you already have. You already have that thing. That desire is just showing you that it's like a little glimpse to the future. And it shows you, okay, this is what you have. Now raise your consciousness and
work for it.
And nurture your mind to vibrate on that frequency.
Because I guess my point is that if you have the vision, it's nobody else's vision but yourself. So that means that it's your vision. Not only are you capable of getting the vision, but it's that faith on yourself, that is that you have to fall back and rely on yourself and survive on yourself, and then make that vision happen on your own. And the closer you get to that on your journey, is the more you're going to find people who gravitate towards the vision and who are going to help along the way and be a part of that. But you are capable. If you have the vision, you are capable of not only that, but surviving on your own, of not needing their help. Now, support is always going to be necessary, but again, it starts from within. I think the best metaphor for a lot of this, and especially when it comes to support and help, is if your car breaks down on the road, people are more willing to help the person that's pushing the car than the person sitting in the car. If your car broke down and you saw somebody pushing that, odds are somebody's going to pull over, they're going to get out, and they're going to help that person push the car. But if the person's just sitting in the car, they're just going to drive right by. That's kind of like how your life is with self-help and all these things. You got to be the one to set it in motion, take the steps, get yourself back up when you lose momentum, and then you'll find more momentum in the people that gravitate towards that. And when it comes to family, if you learn to not have to take money from anybody, you don't necessarily have to listen to anybody's input. Nobody really cares about how you live your life as long as you are able to provide for your life.
Right. And if you're in a place where you have nobody to rely on, and you don't have a family that can support you, then receive it with love. Look at the opportunity that the universe is giving you there to learn to be able to rely on yourself and not to rely on anybody else. Notice the opportunity for independency. You know, it comes with that confusion in the beginning when you don't have anybody to rely on. It might be difficult for you, and you know, how am I going to make it happen? But like, you're going to figure it out, and when you do, it's because you handled your shit. It's because you did what you had to do.
You got to understand you are capable of being self-reliant, and again, that's probably one of the things that gets misconstrued when you go through heartbreak, is that you're in pain, so you don't feel that you're capable. But if you put yourself in good environments, you will see how capable you are. It's like if you sleep well, eat well, you'll perform well. Like, it's proven. It's a scientific thing that if you get your 8 hours of good rest, if you have a good eating habit, you're going to feel better. And when you have to remember those things when you're going through toxic moments of your life, and you have to go find those things that are going to make you feel better, that not only the easy consumption, because I think the truth is that in our society we're so used to consuming things to feel better rather than having to exert ourselves to feel better, because I think that to feel better sometimes we have to do something with our energy.
Here lies the thing, to feel better, the need to feel better. I feel like this is where it lies. This is where it all lies. And having any kind of like need to feel anything, you know what I mean? Your emotions gonna do what they need to do. Of course, using your habits and building the right habits, you can increase your mood and building those habits. But you know, you go through certain things, and like you said before, like you have to like feel whatever you need to feel. Now, of course, like, don't like go out and
go crazy
and like let yourself feel more down. Just like be still. I feel like it's about the breathing and being able to sit still and close your eyes and breathe and breathe and breathe and remind yourself to have faith in yourself, which means have faith in the universe. Everything is a blessing. Everything that is happening to you is an act of love, and you had to learn that too. You know, you had to be mad.
And truth be told, I did have to understand that, like in hindsight, to say that you know, those things needed to happen, or those relationships needed to end it, so that I could put myself back onto a better path, because I was already going in such a destructive path.
And that's the result of resisting your inner being, resisting that inner self, resisting it, and it's like we people believe what they see, and then when it comes to what they don't see, you know, if you have a wound on your arm, you're not gonna scream at your body like heal it immediately. So you go through a heartbreak. Why are you trying to force yourself to get over it within a day? You got to give yourself time, like be still, breathe, do like simple stuff with yourself that make you happy. You know, let yourself feel whatever you need to feel. If you need to cry, then cry 7 times a day if you need to, but don't force yourself to feel anything, you know. Is the resisting.
If anything, the need to feel is more important than the need to feel good. Like, you need to feel what those feelings are, be okay with them, and it's a balance, knowing which times to sit in your pain and your grief, and which times you can turn it around by putting on a good song and having fun. It is a balance. It is a back and forth. There's going to be times where you are going to be sad, but it's still upon you to be able to sit in that, feel that, and then to move on from that. I can honestly say, I think one of the crazy things is that for a lot of people is, I think especially a lot of men will resist crying, and it's like one of those things that guys just don't ever want to do, whether they're around other people or by themselves. You know, crying is like a shameful thing around men. But the funny thing I've noticed, though, is that when you cry and have had like a really strong, hard, heavy cry, at the end of the cry, the energy is kind of dispelled.
The body got to release.
By the end of that cry, like the hard ass cry where you're just at the moment where you kind of feel done for the moment of the crying, or maybe when you fall asleep at the end of the cry, hopefully you wiped your face at least, there tends to be like a freedom and a release from that pain and energy for the moment. And I think that's the kind of like crazy contradiction of life. What this is a paradox where it's like the thing we don't want to do that feels like the worst possible thing to do is just break down and cry is honestly the better thing to do. It is so much better just to break down and have that crying moment than to reach for a bottle, numb yourself, and then do something on an extreme level to not feel sad or depressed.
That's about what you've been through.
Oh, there's a lot of cries. There's been a lot of cries. At this point, though, I have a lot of more grateful tears. I tend to cry over like a really good song in the car, and I'm just like, wow, I really love this song.
Yeah, but you had to be this slow to appreciate this high.
Of course.
You had to break through.
Right. You don't appreciate the sunshine until you've had rain.
Right.
And you need to learn to appreciate that as well. There's no growth without it. And the dark times were necessary even though they were hard and hurtful. And I think that's one of the hardest things for people is that a lot of people will try to find meaning and they look and I feel like they ask the wrong questions. And sometimes like the meaning of the thing that you went through was to show you that these things can happen, but to show that you are resilient and that you can continue on. Because until the day you die, you are capable of doing anything.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, they get so like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. Why did this happen? What is the meaning of this? Every time I try to do something, this happens. Why does this always happen? And those are questions from a very negative space. And I think you're always gonna, so like that thing, you're always gonna kind of get what you're looking for. And if you're kind of asking from a negative place, you're not gonna get a response that you want.
Yeah.
And when you get past the pain and you can look back at it and be like, I needed to go to the lowest I've ever been to understand that level of myself. Right. I do think I have a bit more compassion for people now because I can understand how difficult any layer or level of heartbreak is.
You had to learn ways to feel better. You had to be low to know how to deal with yourself and sit with yourself and notice and be aware of the things that do make you happy, because that's what happens when we go through things that we don't want. We learn what is it that we do want.
Yeah.
And I feel like this will be a good way to close this chapter 2, to understand how important it is in when it comes to relationships and breakups or in anything in life, is to nurture your inner being. Always go back to that inner being, and trying to condition it and decide what is it that you should be doing, what is it that you should be feeling, what is it that you should do, and just like put all your energy into being with that inner being and seeing what is it that makes me feel good. How can I find new ways to make myself feel good?
You know what? Actually, I'm gonna make a twist to that question, because feeling good can be misconstrued in a few ways, because that's how I think people drink, is that drinking makes them feel good. They'll say that. Find the thing that you can either say that you're proud of or that brings you legitimate joy.
But there's a difference between feeling good or having your ego being feeling good.
People will say, you're right, but to the average person, drinking makes them feel good. But
you can admit that there's a difference between feeling good when you start getting a little drunk and when you feel good when you help somebody who just needed help.
Absolutely.
You don't know.
That's why I say the difference. Find something that you can be proud of or something that brings you legitimate joy, because good can be misconstrued as these different things. Helping someone gives me a sense of pride. I feel good to help somebody. That gives me a sense of pride that I did that out of the goodness of my heart to help that person. And enjoy, like dancing, singing, acting, whatever the thing is, the activity that brings you joy like you were a child. Because again, people can take the word good and twist it to be like, oh, well, this thing makes me feel good. And food makes me feel good.
When we talk about feeling good, we're talking about that feeling of joy.
Right, exactly.
Of knowing the feeling that you are in alignment with your inner being.
Right, but that's why I'm trying to be specific about the language of it for us, because you and I can understand that, but oftentimes the easy trap for many people is that I'm doing this thing to make me feel good.
But look, you can drink and drink and drink good, but later on, it doesn't make you feel good.
That's my point. Exactly.
So that's not really good.
Exactly.
You know
but
what
I'm
I mean?
saying they'll continue that negative, destructive pattern because the thought is still, I'm going to do this to make me feel good. Even if it only makes them feel good for a minute, they'll think they're doing it to make them feel good. That's why I say if you can find the thing that gives you pride and that gives you joy, because those things come from a more sincere place. And I think those are the higher quality goods that...
I feel like it comes down to your idea of yourself. When you say me, when people say it makes me feel good, they can talk about the me that they think of themselves. But when you say, when I feel good, it's my inner being. It's not my body or my mind or my concept of myself that I feel I'm giving energy to. No, it's a true feeling of I feel good.
Right.
You know, there's between, if it's a physical good or whatever, but when you say I feel good, and knowing that feeling of what puts you in alignment with your inner being, and then when you always look in that, in your how you view that and how synchronized you in that inner being, that's all you need to do. Seriously, that's all you need to do, because then that's what's gonna bring the most out of you in the relationships. You're gonna trust yourself to be in these relationships. If you go through a breakup, then you understand my inner being doesn't want to be there. Like my inner being didn't feel it was right for it to be there, so it didn't work, and that's okay. I'm trusted. Now what can I do to feel that I'm in tune with that inner being again? What can I do to feel good? Is it a certain way that I need to organize my life? Is it a relationship that I need to take a little step away from? Is it something that I need more to focus on? Maybe I need to focus more on my personal projects or my own ideas or whatever it is that makes you feel good.
And again, I think that comes back to do the things that bring you pride and joy, that feel good. Don't do destructive things to feel good. Yeah.
Any last words?
No. Well, there's so many words we've said. I guess again is that if you're going through your heartbreak or toxic times, please understand you can't change people around you, but you are in control of who has access to you and who's around you. Become self-reliant on yourself, but become self-reliant, and you won't have to necessarily tolerate so many outside opinions. And that way you can, when you rely on yourself, you have confidence in yourself, you'll have faith in yourself, and then you can go exude good energy and find good quality relationships. Try to stay away from the things that make you feel small or things that feel destructive. I'm not going to say that, don't do drinking or smoking. Find moderation. I think moderation is a great key for a lot of people. A lot of us live in extremes, so if you can find moderation, I think you'll find a much more happier and balanced life.
Right. And I think the most important thing that I feel in this subject is self-forgiveness, forgiving the people for going through whatever they need to go through. If anybody hurt you or did you wrong, forgive them, and forgive yourself for attracting that situation, because it's just a way of the universe to show you who you are. Don't be mad at people. Just self-reflect on yourself and see what is it in you that you need to solve and overcome.
Forgiveness might be one of the hardest things, especially if anyone holds any kind of shame to themselves or whatnot. But if you can, it's kind of a long game. It's a gradual thing, but if you can learn to forgive the people that hurt you because they are going through their own things in life, and learn to forgive yourself for being a part of it, allowing it, tolerating it, any responsibility in it, you have to forgive yourself as well in order to really move on and be happy.
All right. Thank you, Shavuz, for another episode. And shout out to Cohiba de Cuba.
Yes.
Cigar Lounge here in North Hollywood for letting us be in this beautiful space. Check it out, y'all, whoever is in the valley. And
it's a beautiful spot, great vibes, great decor, and they have exclusive deals on major brands. So be sure to come check it out.
Thank you for watching.